Hey, what the hell are you doing here, boy? Can't you read? Brad Sinclair's voice boomed across the construction site. This trailer is for actual engineers, not whatever. This is. He gestured dismissively at Jamal Washington, then dramatically stepped sideways to physically block the trailer entrance. Brad's four colleagues snickered behind him. One muttered, "Probably can't even spell structural engineering." Jamal stood perfectly still, work tablet in hand, expensive leather portfolio tucked under his arm. His safety vest bore the same company logo as the others, yet Brad treated him like contamination. "The maintenance shed is over there by the dumpsters," Brad continued, pointing with exaggerated slowness as if speaking to a child. "That's more your skill level." 20 construction workers had stopped working entirely. Phone cameras emerged from pockets. Have you ever been judged so completely wrong that the truth would destroy everyone who doubted you? The timestamp on Jamal's tablet read 2:47 p.m. In the corner, a small notification blinked. Client arrival, 13 minutes. Brad's confidence grew with his audience. Tyler Moss, a junior engineer with prematurely thinning hair, stepped forward. "Seriously, what are you even doing here? This is a restricted area." "I need to verify the foundation specifications for Section C7, Jamal said quietly, his voice steady despite the circle forming around him. Brad laughed a harsh, grating sound. "Verify? You?" He turned to his colleagues. "Did you guys hear that? He wants to verify our work." The other engineers joined in. Sarah Carter, the only woman in Brad's group, shook her head with theatrical disbelief. "That's rich. What's next? You're going to tell us how to do our jobs?" Jamal extended a work order toward Brad. The paper was official, bearing multiple signatures and the Nexus Tech logo. Brad glanced at it dismissively, then made a show of pulling out hand sanitizer. He squeezed a generous amount into his palm, rubbing vigorously. "Can't be too careful these days," he said loudly. "Don't know where that's been." The insult hit its mark. Several construction workers winced. A few pulled out phones, sensing something worth recording. Keisha Martinez, a crane operator taking her lunch break, opened Instagram Live. "Y'all need to see this disrespect happening right now," she whispered into her phone. The viewer count started at 0, then climbed. 15, 67. 124 viewers joined rapidly. Jamal remained calm, but his grip on the leather portfolio tightened slightly. Inside, a first-class boarding pass to Zurich peeked out Delta 1, seat 2A. The engineering calculator clipped to his belt was a Texas Instruments Nspire CX2 $180, not the standard $20 models most workers carried. "Look, friend," Brad said, his tone dripping with false patience. "I don't know what game you're playing, but we have real work to do. Important work. The kind that requires actual education and credentials." Tyler nodded enthusiastically. "Yeah, like degrees from real universities. Not some community college certificate." "MIT, Jamal said quietly. "What?" Brad cupped his ear mockingly. "I said MIT. The engineers exchanged glances. Sarah rolled her eyes. "Sure you did, buddy. And I went to Harvard." "Actually, you went to Cal State Northridge," Jamal said, consulting his tablet. "Class of 2019, 3.2 GPA. Your senior thesis was on sustainable concrete mixtures." Sarah's face flushed. "How do you—" "Public records, professional licensing database. Your PE application is online." The circle grew tighter. More workers gathered, sensing drama. Keisha's livestream viewer count hit 347. Comments flooded in. "This is getting wild. Why are they treating him like that? White privilege in action." Site manager Dave Henley emerged from the main office trailer, clipboard in hand. He was a thick-set man in his 50s, with permanently sun-weathered skin and the tired expression of someone managing too many moving parts. "What's the commotion here?" Dave asked, then spotted Jamal. His face immediately shifted to annoyance. "Jamal, what's the problem now? These gentlemen are trying to work." The assumption was instant and obvious. Jamal was the problem, not the solution. "No problem, Dave," Jamal replied evenly. "Just trying to access the engineering documents for Section C7. There's a potential issue with the foundation depth calculations." Brad stepped forward aggressively. "Dave, this guy is disrupting our workflow. He's claiming he needs to verify our engineering work. Can you believe that?" Dave's expression hardened. "Jamal, you're maintenance staff. You don't verify anything. These are licensed professional engineers. They know what they're doing." "Actually," Jamal began. "Actually nothing," Dave cut him off. "You're out of line, way out of line." Tyler smirked. "Maybe he should stick to fixing toilets and leave the thinking to us." The comment drew nervous laughter from Brad's group, but the construction workers weren't laughing. Several shook their heads in disgust. A few more phones appeared, recording angles. Keisha's live stream exploded. Viewer count, 891, 1,205, 1,847. The comments section moved too fast to read. "Call them out. This is exactly what's wrong with America. Get his name. Get all their names." Jamal opened his leather portfolio and pulled out a small notebook. He began writing calmly, documenting names, times, exact quotes. His handwriting was precise, methodical. "What are you writing?" Brad demanded. "Notes." "Notes about what?" "This conversation. For the record." Brad's confidence faltered slightly. "What record? Are you threatening us?" "I'm documenting discrimination in the workplace. California Labor Code Section 1102.1. Federal contract compliance issues, standard procedure." The legal terminology hung in the air. Dave looked uncertain for the first time. The engineers exchanged worried glances. Jamal's tablet chimed. Another notification. "Client arrival, 8 minutes." In the distance, black town cars approached the site entrance. 3 vehicles, moving with purpose. Through the windshield of the lead car, a woman in an expensive suit spoke rapidly into her phone. But none of the engineers noticed. They were too focused on the man they'd already decided didn't belong. "Look," Dave said, trying to regain control. "I don't know what your angle is here, Jamal, but this stops now. Get back to your assigned area or go home. Your choice." Jamal closed his notebook with deliberate precision. He looked around the circle of faces, some hostile, some uncertain, others openly filming the confrontation. "My assigned area," he repeated slowly, "is Section C7, Foundation Integrity Review, Priority 1. The timer on his tablet continued counting down. 7 minutes, 23 seconds. The black town cars were closer now, their tinted windows reflecting the afternoon sun. But Brad's attention remained fixed on Jamal, his engineering pride wounded by the challenge. "Priority 1? Brad's voice rose. "Who the hell do you think you are giving priorities around here?" Keisha's live stream viewer count hit 2,847. Her whispered commentary kept pace with the drama. "Y'all, this is getting real bad real fast. They got this brother surrounded like he committed some kind of crime." Dave pulled out his radio. "Security to Engineering Trailer 3. We have a situation." The word situation carried weight. On construction sites, situations meant delays. Delays meant money. Money meant corporate attention, the kind nobody wanted. Tyler stepped closer to Jamal, emboldened by Dave's radio call. "You know what I think? I think you're some kind of activist, one of those troublemakers looking to cause problems." "Yeah," Sarah added. "Probably trying to set us up for some lawsuit or something. That's why he's taking notes." The construction workers formed a loose outer circle now, their interest palpable. This wasn't just workplace drama, this was the kind of confrontation that revealed character. Phones recorded from multiple angles, creating a digital jury of witnesses. Marcus Rodriguez, a veteran foreman with 20 years on construction sites, shook his head in disgust. "This ain't right," he muttered to his crew. But he kept his voice low. Speaking up could mean problems with management, and he had bills to pay. Jamal's tablet chimed again. "Client arrival, 5 minutes, 12 seconds. "What keeps beeping on that thing?" Brad demanded. "Notifications." "Notifications from who?" Jamal didn't answer. He was studying the faces around him with an expression that was becoming increasingly unreadable. The expensive calculator on his belt caught the light. The leather portfolio under his arm bore subtle gold initials, JW, PhD, but nobody looked closely enough to read them. Two security guards approached Jorge Martinez and Tony Williams, both in their 40s, both looking like they'd rather be anywhere else. Site security meant managing drunken workers and equipment theft, not whatever this was becoming. "What's going on, Dave?" Jorge asked. "This gentleman," Dave gestured toward Jamal, "is refusing to follow proper site protocols. He's disrupting the engineering team." Tony looked at Jamal, then at the circle of engineers. Something in his expression suggested he'd seen this kind of disruption before. His own son was studying engineering at UC Davis, one of only 3 black students in his program. "Sir, what's the issue here?" "No issue," Jamal replied calmly. "I'm performing my assigned duties, reviewing foundation specifications for Section C7. Brad exploded. "He's not assigned to anything. He's a maintenance staff trying to interfere with professional engineering work." The livestream comments were moving too fast for Keisha to read, but she caught fragments. "Call the police on them. This is 2024, not 1954. Where is HR? Viewer count, 4,921 and climbing." A new voice joined from the crowd. "Hey, Brad," called out Danny Morrison, an electrician who'd worked with Brad on 3 previous projects. "Maybe ease up a little?" Brad whirled around. "Excuse me? You want to tell me how to handle my job site?" "Just saying, man. Guy's just trying to do his work." "His work?" Tyler laughed harshly. "Danny, stick to the running wire. Leave the thinking to people with actual degrees." The insult stung. Danny had 2 years of electrical engineering training, but no degree. Budget constraints had forced him to drop out and enter the trades. The comment reminded everyone of the rigid class structure that governed construction sites. Jorge looked uncomfortable. "Sir, do you have authorization to access those documents?" Jamal reached for his portfolio. "Don't touch anything," Tyler interrupted. "He could be stealing proprietary information." The accusation shifted the entire dynamic. Now it wasn't just about respect or protocol, it was about corporate espionage, theft, criminal activity, the kind of charges that destroyed careers and lives. Dave's radio crackled. "Security, what's your status?" "Still assessing the situation," Jorge replied, his voice tight with uncertainty. Sarah pulled out her own phone. "Maybe we should call the real police. If he's trying to steal engineering documents." The threat hung in the air like smoke. Everyone understood the implications. A black man accused of theft on a corporate construction site. Police involvement. The potential for escalation beyond anyone's control. Tony shifted uncomfortably. He'd seen too many situations like this spiral out of control. "Maybe we should just—" "Call corporate security," Brad interrupted. "Get some real professionals down here who know how to handle situations like this." Jamal's expression never changed, but his grip on the portfolio shifted slightly. His other hand moved to his tablet, where the countdown continued. 3 minutes, 47 seconds. Keisha's live stream was going viral in real time. Shares were multiplying exponentially. Local news stations were already monitoring social media feeds for breaking stories. The viewer count hit 6,789. "You know what?" Brad said, his voice gaining dangerous confidence. "I think we should definitely call the cops. This whole thing smells fishy. Guy shows up claiming to be some kind of engineer, trying to access classified documents, taking notes on everyone. That's not what's happening here, Jamal said quietly. Oh, it's not? Tyler stepped forward aggressively. Then what is happening? Because from where I stand, it looks like some maintenance worker got ideas above his station and decided to cause trouble for his betters. The word betters landed like a slap. Even some of the construction workers winced. Marcus Rodriguez clenched his fists. Danny Morrison stepped forward slightly, as if preparing to intervene. Keisha's live stream erupted. Did he just say betters? Record everything. These people are sick. The viewer count hit 8,433. A new player entered the scene. Janet Williams, the site's safety coordinator, emerged from the main office. She was a no-nonsense woman in her 50s who'd built her career navigating male-dominated construction environments. What's this crowd about? She demanded. We've got OSHA inspectors arriving any minute, and you're all standing around like it's a block party? Dave looked relieved to see the authority he recognized. Janet, we've got a problem with this maintenance worker. He's refusing to follow protocols. Janet looked at Jamal, then at the circle of engineers. Her expression was unreadable, but her experience told her something wasn't adding up. Maintenance workers didn't carry leather portfolios or expensive calculators. What protocols exactly? She asked. Access to engineering documents, Brad said quickly. He's demanding to see classified foundation specifications. Janet's eyebrows rose. Foundation specs weren't typically classified, and maintenance workers occasionally needed access for repair work. But before she could ask more questions, Sarah was already dialing. I'm calling the police, Sarah announced. Let them sort this out. The 3 digits, 911, appeared on her phone screen. Tony, the second security guard, seemed increasingly uncomfortable with the direction of the confrontation. His hand moved to his own radio, uncertain whether to call for backup or try to de-escalate. But before anyone could make another move, a new voice cut through the tension. Excuse me? Is there a Dr. Washington here? Everyone turned. A woman in an expensive navy suit was walking toward them, flanked by 2 men in equally impressive attire. Margaret Carter, VP of Corporate Real Estate for Nexus Tech, looked exactly like someone accustomed to having her questions answered immediately. Behind her, the black town cars sat with engines running, their occupants visible through partially opened windows. These weren't local managers or site supervisors. These were corporate executives, the kind whose time was measured in thousands of dollars per hour. Dr. Washington, Brad repeated, his voice cracking slightly. There's no doctor here. This is a construction site. Margaret's eyes swept the circle, clearly looking for someone who matched her expectations. Her gaze lingered on Brad, then Tyler, then Dave, then settled on Janet, the only other person in professional attire. I'm looking for Dr. Jamal Washington, she said, her voice carrying the authority of someone not accustomed to waiting. We have an urgent consultation scheduled regarding the foundation integrity issues. The silence stretched like a rubber band ready to snap. Keisha's phone trembled in her hands. Her viewer count had exploded to over 12,000. The comments section was pure chaos. Oh snap, oh snap, oh snap. Doctor? Plot twist incoming. Jamal's tablet chimed one final time. Client arrival, now. He looked at Margaret Carter, then at the circle of faces surrounding him. Brad's expression was shifting from confidence to confusion to something approaching panic. That would be me, Jamal said simply. The words dropped into the silence like stones into still water. The ripples spread outward, touching every face, every assumption, every carefully constructed hierarchy that had seemed so solid just moments before. Margaret's relief was visible. Dr. Washington, thank goodness. We need to discuss the foundation issue immediately. My team is here from headquarters specifically to... She stopped mid-sentence, finally noticing the crowd, the phones, the obvious tension crackling in the air like electricity before a storm. "Is everything all right here?" Brad's mouth opened and closed without sound. The confident engineer who'd been holding court minutes earlier now looked like a man watching his world tilt sideways. "Dr. Washington? But you're—" "Black?" Jamal supplied quietly. "Yes, I noticed that too." Tyler stepped back involuntarily, as if the revelation had physical force. "Wait, you're actually a doctor? Like a real doctor?" The question revealed everything wrong with the last 30 minutes. The assumption that real doctors, real engineers, real professionals looked a certain way, came from certain backgrounds, fit certain expectations. Jamal opened his leather portfolio with deliberate precision. The first document he withdrew was laminated, official, bearing the MIT seal and his photograph. Doctor of Philosophy in Structural Engineering, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, 2015. Summa cum laude. Thesis: Advanced Computational Methods for Seismic Resistant Foundation Design. Brad's face cycled through several colors as he processed the implications. MIT wasn't just any university. It was the university, the gold standard for engineering education, the kind of institution that produced the engineers who designed skyscrapers, bridges, and billion-dollar infrastructure projects. Sarah's phone, still displaying the 911 screen, trembled in her hand. That's impossible. You don't look like—" "Like what?" Jamal asked, his voice carrying a dangerous quiet. The silence stretched. Nobody wanted to finish that sentence out loud, but everyone understood what she meant. The image in their heads of what an MIT PhD looked like didn't match the man standing before them. The second document emerged from the portfolio. A professional engineer license from the state of California, license number CE4821S, Structural Engineering Specialty, valid through 2026. But this wasn't just any PE license. The designation showed advanced certifications in seismic engineering and high-rise construction. Dave's clipboard clattered to the ground. The sound echoed across the construction site like a gunshot. "Jesus Christ, you're the consulting engineer?" "One of them," Jamal corrected. "Principal consulting engineer, actually." Margaret Carter's confusion deepened as she absorbed the scene. Her eyes moved from Jamal to the circle of obviously hostile faces, to the phones recording everything, to the security guards standing awkwardly nearby. As a corporate executive, she'd developed an instinct for situations that could explode into lawsuits and PR disasters. This one was already there. "Dr. Washington, what exactly is happening here?" Keisha's live stream had exploded beyond anything she'd ever experienced. 15,847 viewers and climbing exponentially. The comments section was a blur of caps lock excitement, anger, and disbelief. "Yes, doctor, get them! MIT PhD, period T. These racists bout to get fired. I'm screaming this is insane. Somebody better lose their job." Local news stations were already monitoring the feed. Social media managers at major corporations were taking notes, preparing crisis response strategies for their own companies. This was the kind of viral content that destroyed careers and changed corporate policies overnight. Jamal pulled out a third document, business cards, pristine and professional. Washington Structural Solutions, LLC. Dr. Jamal Washington, PE, Principal Engineer. The company logo was subtle but expensive, the kind of design that suggested serious money and serious connections. The address listed was in downtown San Francisco, the prestigious financial district where only successful firms could afford office space. "I've been trying to explain," Jamal said, handing a card to Margaret, "that Section C7 has critical foundation depth miscalculations. The current specifications will result in differential settling within 18 months of occupancy." Margaret's face went pale. Differential settling wasn't just an engineering problem, it was a legal nightmare. Buildings that settled unevenly cracked. Cracked buildings meant lawsuits. Lawsuits meant millions in damages and destroyed reputations. Differential settling? How much differential settling? Conservative estimate, 4 to 6 inches on the northeast corner, enough to crack load-bearing walls and compromise structural integrity. Worst-case scenario, we're looking at partial building evacuation and emergency retrofitting. The technical language cut through the drama like a scalpel. This wasn't just about hurt feelings or workplace politics anymore. This was about millions of dollars, potential lawsuits, possible building collapse, and the kind of engineering failure that ended careers. Brad found his voice, though it came out strangled and desperate. "Dr. Washington, we had no idea. We thought—" "You thought what, exactly?" Jamal's voice remained calm, but there was steel underneath. "That maintenance workers can't read engineering specifications? That black men can't hold advanced degrees? That someone wearing work clothes couldn't possibly understand structural engineering?" The questions hit like hammer blows. Each one exposed another layer of assumption, another level of unconscious bias that had shaped the last half hour. Tyler was backing away now, his face flushed with embarrassment and growing panic. "We made a mistake. Obviously, we made a mistake." "Yes," Jamal agreed. "You did. Multiple mistakes, documented mistakes." Margaret Carter was starting to piece together what had happened, and her expression was hardening by the second. As VP of corporate real estate for a Fortune 500 company, she'd seen enough discrimination lawsuits to recognize one brewing. The legal implications were staggering. Federal contract compliance violations, workplace discrimination, interference with professional services, the kind of case that employment lawyers dreamed about. "Dr. Washington," she said carefully, "were these individuals preventing you from performing your contracted duties?" The question hung in the air like a sword. Everyone understood the implications. Interference with contracted services was a breach of federal regulations. Discrimination in the workplace violated multiple state and federal laws. Federal contract compliance violations could result in massive penalties and loss of government contracts worth hundreds of millions. Jamal consulted his notebook, the one where he'd been documenting everything with the precision of someone who understood that details mattered in legal proceedings. At 2:47 p.m., Mr. Sinclair refused me access to engineering documents and directed me to the porta-potties, suggesting my proper place was with waste management facilities. "Jesus," Margaret whispered. At 2:51, Mr. Moss suggested I couldn't spell structural engineering, implying intellectual inadequacy based solely on my appearance. At 2:53, Ms. Carter implied I attended community college rather than a real university, again making assumptions about my educational background. Each timestamp, each quote, each detail was being recorded not just in Jamal's notebook, but by dozens of phones and one very active live stream. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. At 2:55, Mr. Henley called me out of line for requesting access to foundation specifications that I'm contractually obligated to review. At 2:57, security was called to remove me from the premises for performing my assigned duties. Sarah's phone finally slipped from her nerveless fingers, clattering on the concrete. The 911 call she'd been about to make suddenly seemed like the worst idea in human history. Calling police on a black professional who was being discriminated against while trying to do his job? The optics alone could destroy her career. And at 2:59, Jamal continued, Mr. Moss referred to his colleagues as my betters, explicitly establishing a racial and social hierarchy. The word hit Margaret like a physical blow. As a Korean-American woman who'd climbed the corporate ladder in the male-dominated construction and real estate industries, she knew exactly what that kind of language meant. She'd heard similar words directed at her, felt the sting of being dismissed and underestimated. "Mr. Moss," she said, her voice carrying the authority of someone who signed paychecks and determined career trajectories, "did you actually use that word?" Tyler looked around desperately, seeking support that was no longer there. His colleagues had abandoned him, stepping back as if his career failure might be contagious. It was taken out of context. What context makes that word appropriate when addressing a professional colleague? Silence. The kind of silence that answered everything. Jorge, the security guard, was slowly realizing how badly this could go for everyone involved. His radio crackled. "Security? Status report?" Situation resolved," he replied weakly. But nothing was resolved. If anything, the revelation had made everything infinitely worse. What had started as workplace discrimination was now documented, viral, and legally actionable. Janet Williams, the safety coordinator, had been watching with growing horror. As one of the few women in site management, she understood workplace dynamics better than most. "Dave," she said quietly, "do you understand what just happened here?" Dave looked like a man who'd just watched his career explode in real time. 23 years in construction management, and it might all end because he'd made assumptions about a black man in work clothes. "Janet, we didn't know." "That's the problem," she replied. "You didn't know, but you acted anyway. You made decisions based on appearances instead of facts." Margaret was pulling out her own phone now, but not to call 911. She was calling corporate legal, the employment law specialists who handled discrimination cases and federal compliance issues. "This is Margaret Carter. I need the employment law team on standby immediately. We have a potential federal compliance violation at the Nexus construction site." The live stream viewer count hit 22,000. Local news stations were already dispatching crews. Twitter was exploding with shares and retweets. Justice. For Jamal was starting to trend nationally. Corporate communications teams across Silicon Valley were taking notes, updating their crisis management protocols. But Jamal wasn't finished. He had one more revelation that would change everything. "Ms. Carter," he said, addressing Margaret directly, "I need to inform you that this incident has been live-streamed to over 20,000 viewers and recorded by multiple witnesses. But more importantly, I need you to understand the full scope of the foundation problem." He opened his tablet, displaying detailed engineering schematics that made Brad's team look like amateurs. "The differential settling I mentioned? It's not just Section C7. The entire northeast quadrant of the building is compromised. We're looking at potential structural failure that could affect the safety of 300 future occupants." Margaret's phone call paused mid-dial. This wasn't just about discrimination anymore. This was about life and death. Margaret Carter's phone buzzed with an incoming call. The caller ID showed legal priority line. She answered immediately, putting it on speaker without thinking. "Margaret, this is Patricia Valdez from legal. We're monitoring social media alerts for the company. There's a viral live stream from your construction site. Over 30,000 viewers now. What's happening?" The number hit the crowd like cold water. 30,000 people watched. Keisha's hands shook as she held her phone, the weight of the moment suddenly overwhelming. "Patricia," Margaret said carefully, "I'm going to need you to conference with HR Director Hamilton and Chief Operating Officer Reynolds. We have a situation that requires immediate executive attention." While Margaret coordinated the call, Jamal opened his tablet fully, revealing engineering software that cost more than most people's cars. The screen displayed a three-dimensional model of the entire Nexus Tech building, with stress analysis overlays showing critical failure points highlighted in red. "The foundation issues extend beyond Section C7, Jamal continued, his voice carrying the authority of someone who understood exactly how serious this was. The geological survey missed a subsurface clay layer that extends 47 feet deeper than anticipated. Brad's face went white. Clay layers meant shifting soil, unpredictable settling, and the kind of engineering nightmare that destroyed buildings and careers. That's impossible. We did comprehensive soil analysis." "Yes, you did," Jamal agreed, swiping to display the original geological report. "But you missed the secondary clay stratum because your bore samples only went to 60 feet. Industry standard for buildings this size is 90 feet minimum. Tyler stepped forward desperately. Dr. Washington, surely we can work together to— Mr. Moss, Jamal interrupted. According to your PE license application, you graduated from Cal Poly San Luis Obispo in 2021. How many high-rise foundation projects have you actually engineered? The question was surgical in its precision. Tyler's experience was limited to residential projects and small commercial buildings. Nothing approaching the complexity of a 12-story tech headquarters. That's not relevant. It's extremely relevant. This building will house 347 employees. The total construction value is $847 million. The liability exposure if the foundation fails is approximately $2.3 billion in damages, plus potential manslaughter charges if anyone dies in a collapse. The numbers hit like physical blows. Margaret's conference call was connecting, and she could hear voices joining the line people whose decisions would determine careers and corporate futures. Margaret Carter here. I'm on site with Dr. Jamal Washington, our principal consulting structural engineer. Dr. Washington, can you brief the executive team on the situation? Jamal's voice carried across the construction site with calm professionalism. Good afternoon. We have two critical issues that require immediate attention. First, a foundation engineering problem that threatens building safety. Second, a documented pattern of workplace discrimination that has prevented me from addressing the engineering issue. Patricia Valdez, Chief Legal Counsel. Dr. Washington, what exactly happened regarding the discrimination? Jamal consulted his notebook again. At 2:47 p.m., I was prevented from accessing engineering documents by site personnel who assumed, based on my appearance, that I was maintenance staff rather than the contracted consulting engineer. The interaction was recorded by multiple witnesses and live-streamed to over 30,000 viewers. Sarah Carter looked like she wanted to disappear into the concrete. Her earlier threat to call police on a black professional was being broadcast to a national audience. Dr. Washington, came a new voice from the speaker. This is COO Reynolds. What's your assessment of the legal exposure? Significant. California Labor Code 1102.1 covers workplace discrimination. Federal Contract Compliance Regulations under Executive Order 11246 apply to all government contractors. Nexus Tech holds $340 million in federal contracts that could be jeopardized by discrimination violations. The silence from the phone was deafening. $340 million in federal contracts represented nearly 15% of Nexus Tech's annual revenue. Margaret pulled out her laptop, accessing internal databases in real time. Dr. Washington, I'm looking at your contract now. Washington Structural Solutions holds our primary engineering consultation agreement, valued at $23.4 million over 3 years. Correct. With a termination clause that includes a $2.3 million penalty fee if services are interrupted due to client-side interference. Brad's knees nearly buckled. The discrimination had officially cost the company millions, potentially tens of millions if federal contracts were reviewed. Dr. Washington, Patricia Valdez's voice carried the weight of someone calculating legal exposure in real time. What would you need to resolve both the engineering and discrimination issues? Jamal had clearly anticipated this question. For the engineering problem, immediate access to all foundation specifications, authority to implement emergency stabilization measures, and a 48-hour deadline to redesign the Northeast Quadrant Foundation. And for the discrimination issue? Immediate suspension of the personnel who interfered with contracted services, mandatory bias training for all site management, implementation of a real-time discrimination reporting system, public acknowledgement of the incident and commitment to policy changes. Dave Henley, who had been silent since the revelation, finally spoke up. Dr. Washington, I want to apologize. We made assumptions. Mr. Henley, COO Reynolds interrupted from the phone. Please don't say anything else. Legal will handle this. But the damage was done. Dave's partial admission was being live-streamed to 35,000 viewers and recorded by multiple phones. Margaret was typing rapidly on her laptop, pulling up personnel files. Brad Sinclair, 12 years with the company. Tyler Moss, 18 months. Sarah Carter, 3 years. Dave Henley, site manager for 7 years. Each name was a potential lawsuit, a potential termination, a potential federal compliance violation. "Ms. Carter," Jamal said, "I need to show you something that will clarify the urgency of this situation." He opened a specialized engineering application that displayed real-time stress analysis. The building model rotated slowly, showing load distribution patterns that would make any structural engineer nervous. The current foundation design will result in a 6-inch differential settlement within the first year of occupancy. By year 3, we're looking at 8 to 10 inches of movement. That level of structural stress will cause catastrophic failure. "Define catastrophic failure," COO Reynolds requested. "Partial building collapse, potential loss of life, complete structural condemnation, total loss of the $847 million investment." The livestream comments were exploding with engineering students and professionals who understood the implications. "Holy shit, 10-inch settlement equals death trap. I'm a structural engineer, this is terrifying. Somebody better fix this immediately." Margaret's laptop chimed with an urgent email. "I'm receiving a message from our insurance carrier. They're monitoring the live stream and requesting immediate clarification on liability coverage." Insurance companies didn't monitor social media unless they were calculating massive potential payouts. "Dr. Washington," Patricia Valdez said, "if we agree to your terms, what's your timeline for resolving the foundation issue?" 48 hours for emergency stabilization, 6 weeks for complete foundation redesign, 3 months for implementation. "And if we don't resolve this immediately? I'll be obligated to file safety violations with the State of California Division of Occupational Safety and Health. Building permits will be suspended. Construction will halt. The entire project will be delayed by a minimum 18 months. Brad made one final desperate attempt to salvage his position. "Dr. Washington, surely we can work as a team." "Mr. Sinclair," Jamal replied with ice-cold professionalism, "you called me boy and directed me to the porta-potties. You questioned my right to access engineering documents and suggested I was theft. There is no team here, team." The finality in his voice was absolute. Brad's career was over, and everyone knew it. Margaret's phone buzzed with another urgent call. "This is our stock analyst. The live stream is affecting our share price. We've dropped 2% in the last 10 minutes. 2% of Nexus Tech's market capitalization was approximately $180 million. The discrimination had officially cost more money than anyone could calculate." "Dr. Washington," COO Reynolds said, "we accept your terms. Full authority to address the engineering issues. Immediate personnel actions regarding the discrimination. Whatever you need." "I'll need that in writing. Contract amendment. Legal signatures. Full indemnification for project delays caused by the discrimination." "You'll have it within the hour." Jamal closed his tablet with satisfaction. "Then let's get to work. We have a building to save." Within 2 hours, the corporate machinery of justice moved with ruthless efficiency. Margaret Carter's laptop displayed termination letters, suspension notices, and policy changes that would reshape how Nexus Tech operated. "Brad Sinclair," Margaret announced to the assembled crowd, "effective immediately, suspended without pay, pending full investigation. Professional engineer license under review by the California Board of Professional Engineers and Land Surveyors." Brad stood frozen, still processing how completely his life had changed in a single afternoon. 12 years with the company, gone. His PE license, the foundation of his career, under official scrutiny. The discrimination wasn't just a workplace issue, it was a professional ethics violation that could end his engineering career permanently. Tyler Moss, terminated immediately for discriminatory conduct and violation of federal contract compliance standards. Tyler had already started walking toward the parking lot, his company hard hat abandoned on a concrete barrier. At 26, he'd have to explain this termination to every future employer. In the tight-knit engineering community, word traveled fast. Sarah Carter, mandatory 40-hour bias training, formal reprimand, 6-month probationary status. Sarah nodded numbly. She understood she was lucky to keep her job. Her near miss with calling police on Jamal could have destroyed her career entirely. Dave Henley, removed from site management, reassigned to office coordination pending completion of management sensitivity training. Dave accepted his demotion silently. 23 years in construction management, and he'd have to rebuild his reputation from scratch. Keisha's live stream had reached 47,000 viewers. The comments section celebrated each announcement. Justice served. By Brad. This is how you handle racism. But the personnel changes were just the beginning. Dr. Patricia Valdez had worked with corporate policy specialists to implement systematic reforms that would prevent future incidents. Effective immediately, Margaret continued, Nexus Tech is implementing the Respectful Workplace Initiative 2024. All construction sites will have mandatory bias training before personnel can access secure areas. Janet Williams, the safety coordinator, stepped forward with a tablet displaying the new protocol. We're launching an anonymous discrimination reporting app, real-time reporting with immediate escalation to corporate HR and legal departments. The app was already live, developed by Nexus Tech's internal software team in record time. Workers could report incidents instantly, with automatic documentation and corporate notification. Monthly diversity audits will be conducted on all construction sites, Margaret added. Zero-tolerance policy with automatic termination for discriminatory conduct. Jamal had spent the previous hour in the engineering trailer, working with supernatural focus to address the foundation crisis. His solution was elegant, innovative, and expensive, but it would save the building. The foundation issue, he announced, requires immediate installation of 47 micropile supports to stabilize the northeast quadrant. Cost, $3.2 million. Timeline, 6 weeks. Alternative cost of building failure, $847 million total loss. Margaret didn't hesitate. Approved. Whatever you need. The micropile solution was cutting-edge engineering that few firms could execute. Washington Structural Solutions had the expertise and equipment to implement it immediately, turning a potential disaster into a showcase of advanced construction techniques. Local news crews had arrived, interviewing construction workers about the incident. Marcus Rodriguez, the veteran foreman, summed up the general sentiment. Dr. Washington got treated wrong, but he handled it like a professional. Made us all think about how we see people. The engineering community was taking notice. MIT's alumni magazine contacted Jamal for an interview. The California Society of Professional Engineers requested him as keynote speaker for their annual conference. 3 major firms submitted competing proposals for expanded consulting relationships. But the most significant change was cultural. Word spread through the construction industry with lightning speed. The Washington standards became shorthand for professional respect regardless of appearance or background. Jamal's consulting firm, Washington Structural Solutions, saw immediate growth. Project inquiries increased 300% within a week. His specialization in foundation engineering and seismic safety made him one of the most sought-after consultants on the West Coast. The live stream had created unexpected educational opportunities. Engineering schools began using the incident in professional ethics courses. Corporate America took notice of unconscious bias in professional settings. HR departments nationwide updated their training materials. Sarah Carter, despite her probationary status, became an unexpected advocate for change. Her near mistake with the police call had shocked her into recognizing her own biases. She volunteered for additional training and began mentoring young engineers from underrepresented communities. Even Jorge and Tony, the security guards, attended voluntary bias training. Jorge's son at UC Davis called him after seeing news coverage. Dad, I'm proud you didn't escalate that situation. The financial impact rippled through Silicon Valley. Nexus Tech's stock price recovered within days, actually closing higher as investors recognized the company's decisive response to discrimination. The message was clear. Companies that addressed bias quickly and thoroughly would be rewarded. Jamal established a scholarship fund for minority engineering students, funded by his increased consulting revenue. The Washington Excellence Scholarship provided full tuition support for students pursuing structural engineering degrees. 3 months later, the Nexus Tech building stood as a monument to both engineering excellence and workplace justice. The Micropile Foundation system became a case study in innovative problem-solving. The discrimination response became a template for corporate America. 6 months after that pivotal afternoon, Dr. Jamal Washington stood before 300 engineering students at Stanford University, delivering the keynote address for the National Society of Black Engineers Conference. The auditorium was packed, with overflow crowds watching via live stream, a fitting medium for a story that had started with social media. Excellence, he told the audience, has no color, but ignorance has consequences. The Nexus Tech building had become a symbol of both engineering innovation and social progress. The Micropile Foundation system Jamal designed was featured in engineering journals worldwide. More importantly, the Washington Standards for Workplace Respect had been adopted by construction companies across 3 states. His consulting firm now employed 12 engineers, with offices in San Francisco, Los Angeles, and Seattle. The discrimination that was meant to diminish him had instead amplified his voice and expanded his influence. Keisha Martinez had parlayed her viral live stream into a career in social justice journalism. Her documentation of the incident became a textbook example of citizen journalism's power to create change. She still worked as a crane operator, but now also hosted a weekly podcast called Construction Truth, highlighting workplace equality issues. The ripple effects continued spreading through real-life stories across America. Corporate diversity training programs referenced the incident. Law schools used it as a case study in employment discrimination. Engineering ethics courses analyzed the professional obligations that were violated and upheld. Brad Sinclair had found work as a junior engineer at a small residential firm, his career permanently altered. The California Board of Professional Engineers had issued a formal censure, requiring additional ethics training before license reinstatement. The consequences were real, lasting, and deserved. Tyler Moss had left engineering entirely, working in his family's restaurant business. Sometimes consequences redirect lives toward better paths. Sarah Carter had emerged as an unexpected advocate for change. Her mandatory training had evolved into voluntary leadership in diversity initiatives. She'd become living proof that people could recognize their biases and choose growth over defensiveness. Margaret Carter received a promotion to senior vice president, partially based on her decisive handling of the discrimination crisis. Nexus Tech's employee satisfaction scores had improved dramatically, and their federal contracts had been renewed without question. The touching stories weren't limited to individual transformations. The incident had sparked conversations in living rooms, classrooms, and boardrooms across America. Children asked their parents about fairness and assumptions. Students challenged their professors about bias in technical fields. Executives examined their hiring practices and workplace cultures. Black stories like Jamal's resonated because they revealed universal truths about dignity, respect, and the power of competence to overcome prejudice. The live stream had become required viewing in some corporate training programs, a stark reminder that assumptions could destroy careers and companies. Engineering schools reported increased enrollment among students of color, inspired by seeing a black professional triumph through intelligence rather than confrontation. The scholarship fund Jamal established had already supported 47 students pursuing engineering degrees. The foundation of the Nexus Tech building remained perfectly stable, a testament to expertise over assumption. But the real foundation that had been built was stronger. A framework for recognizing talent regardless of appearance, for respecting competence over conformity. Dr. Jamal Washington proved that when bias meets brilliance, truth always wins. But victory requires witnesses, documentation, and the courage to stand firm when assumptions crumble around you. Your voice matters in these moments. When you witness workplace injustice, speak up. When you see discrimination, document it. When competence is questioned based on appearance, demand evidence over assumption. Have you experienced similar treatment in your workplace? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience could be the catalyst for someone else's courage. If this story moved you, subscribe to Black Soul Stories for more accounts of triumph over adversity. Hit that notification bell because every week we showcase the brilliance that bias tries to hide. Excellence speaks every language, represents every color, and deserves every opportunity. What will you do the next time you witness injustice trying to silence competence? Share this video. Let the world know that assumptions have consequences, but truth has power. The foundation is strong. The story continues. Your chapter starts now.